Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 3 for more tutorials. I'm your lovely host, Calvin. And last time we talked about how, units work, how you build them, and how they function. And a bit about how battles work. We'll probably have a whole episode dedicated to that later, though. But now we're going to talk about research, espionage, diplomacy, and officers. That is leadership. Leadership, you see, is actually a resource that I didn't really talk about before. For example, we had the London here. Wow, oops, no, I clicked on the wrong province here. London. Certain provinces have a leadership value. This is the amount of leadership that they provide. And in total, your leadership is summed up on the technology screen. Now, leadership is the abstract resource for non-industrial things, like research, the ability to build spies, conduct diplomacy, and recruit officers. All very important things. And you have to decide how best to allocate. So, we're England. So we're going to want to at least get some techs here. They're all a bunch of different techs that you can get. They're all divided into categories. It seems overwhelming at first, but it's pretty simple. Theory, you can actually pretty much ignore this entire page completely. Don't touch it. These are tactics, and you'll find things that improve morale and organization and give you better access to certain tactics. As we talked about before with in battles, leaders pick a tactic. What tactics they have access to is based on your technology. For example, if I research higher levels of blitzkrieg, then, my leaders will be more likely to choose blitz and masterful blitz once you start researching higher levels of things. So, for example, if I have integrated support, we'll be more likely to use the encirclement tactic. And so on. Reckless assault and assault. I'm not too certain I like reckless assault. There is also another variable related to what leaders will choose, but I'll get to that later. And there are similar things here, simply instead for naval and air. In particular, it can be good to research certain tactics for your bombers. Personally, I prefer... Where is it? Yeah, here we are. Ground attack tactics, which improve your ground attack efficiency. This is, I tend to consider pretty important. And also, where is it? Yeah, here we go. Forward air control, frontline target focus, and reserve target focus. By researching one or the other, you can tell what type of unit you want it to attack. I generally consider it very important that you target the front line as opposed to the reserve, so I generally have this higher than this. And that's okay, I think. So these two combined will make your bombers significantly more threatening. It's very important to have them, I think, if you're going to do bombing-related things. And I'm not going to go into all the different tactics that you can research. You can read them yourself. They all apply generally to a specific unit. So here's the basic things. If you're hurting for leadership, which the UK is certainly not, you may have to make some choices. For example, you might want to, if you're fighting Germany, you might choose anti-tank weapons for your infantry, which makes them significantly better against fighting tanks. Now, where these numbers get confusing is this is the total bonus from all the techs researched, including the one you're about to research. Each one of these infantry tank weapon technologies give the infantry only plus 0.25 heart attack and plus 1 piercing. So it's not actually as big of an effect as you might think. Oh, if I research that, I get an extra 4 to my piercing attack and plus 1 to my heart attack. No, that's just the total. So generally, you have to actually do a little bit of math to figure out, where you end up with it and how much you actually get out of it. But in general, it's good to be researching stuff. Since the UK is certainly not hurting, you can just pretty much chalk this up. Now, you're probably asking, well, let's say I'm on a tight budget. What's most important? If you have if you don't have leadership, but you have IC, you can, for the most part, ignore artillery and support weapons. These just simply mean you'll take less casualties when attacking and defending. And if you got the IC to reinforce yourself, you'll probably do okay. On the other hand, if you're, say, playing the Soviet Union, and you expect to be invaded by Germany for some reason, I can't imagine why, you might choose infantry support weapons as opposed to artillery. Artillery improves toughness, but Toughness is only used when you're attacking. Infantry support weapons improves defensiveness, which is only used when you're on the defense. So you need to make your choices wisely against what you're fighting against. Like if you're fighting as the Soviet Union against Germany, I suggest support weapons and anti-tank weapons. These two are very important. This is just an example. Every situation is unique, and you'll have to make your own judgment calls. I hope I can give you the knowledge needed that you can make at least semi-accurate calls. Now these will all state what they affect. So infantry weapons and infantry upgrades in general are for infantry brigades, marine brigades, paratrooper brigades, mountain brigades, motorized brigades, mechanized brigades, and Gurkhas. Now, most of these are pretty simple. Infantry brigades is infantry brigades. Marine, mountain, and airborne, or paratroopers, are these kinds of brigades. Paratroopers can, be paradropped into provinces. Marine infantry are much better and remove most of the penalties for attacking from a landing craft. If you plan to, say, perform some sort of Operation Overlord, you will probably need a lot of these. Mountain infantry have a much better chance at fighting in the mountains and will do significantly better. You can also get various equipments for various things, including amphibious warfare equipment. Jesus Christ, make sure to research this. Research this. God, but do not try Operation Overlord without it. And a lot of marine infantry. So we do have a lot of infantry in our army, so we're just going to start researching that. You'll notice that since I have 4 techs currently queued, I need 4 leadership. We have 31, and you'll generally want to put most of your, if not almost all of your leadership into teching. Now, since we are the UK, we will want to get some boats, as we do. The Germans are rather quite infamous for submarines, so instead of going capital, actually, you know what? No, we'll keep going capital. And we're going to, let's see, carrier engine, armor. Yeah, we'll get some carrier engine, carrier armor, and hangar. Now, what do these all do? Well, air defense and air attack for the carrier protects it from aircraft, simple enough. Carrier engine improves its speed and improves its range. Also means that it's better at defending from attacks that come from the sea. Armor simply improves, its hull. And here we go. Visibility. Visibility is an odd one. Naval and air combat are a lot different. In particular, submarines, it would be kind of odd for submarines that are in the same province as, just some random battleship to automatically engage. There is only a chance that they will engage. They can sit in the same province and not fight. When 2 particular groups enter a province, I'm probably actually going to have to use a cheat just to show you this. Debug Fog of War. Will that show me where the Germans... Here we go. So thanks to me turning off the Fog of War, I can now see where the German ships are. Normally you can't see them, so normally you can't just hunt them down super easy, but hey. Oh dear, I've equipped too many ships to him. You can only equip 12 ships, huh? Alright. So, we got a lot of submarines coming and going. No real surprise. So, we're going to send them to the eastern Norwegian Trench and intercept. Hopefully this doesn't make it too screwy, and that they will operate normally even with Fog of War off. I just want to try and demonstrate this here. It's waiting? What for? Good. We're being attacked. Unfortunately, they have made a critical error in judgment by attacking me from multiple directions. 2nd Infantry Brigade Revision. Move you back. The 5th, the 50th, 3ME, and 3rd. 3rd. 50th, Northumbrian. And where is it? What's the last one? 5th and 3ME Division. We want to try and get rid of our excess there. That way we'll do better. 5th Infantry Division. Well, unfortunately I can't find where it is. Oh well. And that'll help out a little bit. Oh, I think that's because it's not mine. So, yeah, this is going very terribly. I didn't get a chance to talk too much about combat last time. Currently, the Germans have a bunch of stuff in reserve, but they can't bring it onto the battlefield. You see, depending on the general's skill, the tactics you've researched, everything else, Lend-Lease request. Yes, of course, we will support France. Depending on the general's skill and various other things, units that arrive to combat late may not necessarily enter the battle right away. They will likely abstain from the battle for quite some time. Each, I think it's day? No, I can't remember if it's hour or day. A die is rolled for each unit. So, you know, certain units are more likely to reinforce depending on things. And if their number comes up, then they are moved to the front. You'll notice that the Germans are actually going to lose practically immediately here. Boom. Despite having a bunch of troops in reserve, they lost all their troops on the front, which forced their reserves to fall back. This is an important concept. If you don't have the ability to reinforce quickly, it also means that probing attacks can end terribly sometimes. So be careful with that. Don't just send one unit in to probe their defenses and get the attack started to see if you really want to continue with it. That can often end poorly. It should be land in here somewhere. Yeah, grand battle plans, combat reinforcement chance plus 5%. This is a technology that will improve it significantly, going from like 1% to 6%. That is a huge improvement, and it's actually a highly recommendable technology to get. You actually find that most of the special ones here are marked in yellow. If they're marked in yellow, by the way, you can only research one level of them, where green you can research multiple levels of them. So, grand battle plan is important. Superior firepower, also very important, because this allows you to have 5 brigades in a division as opposed to 4. We talked about that last episode. And Spearhead Doctrine is very important if you're going to be heavy on the armor. And the reason for this is because, well, you know, you can otherwise only have half as many tanks on the battlefield, really. You need Spearhead Doctrine to really make armor worthwhile. Otherwise, it's, you know, taking up the spot of 2 infantry. And you know what? 2 infantry win out, I'm sorry to say. Over tanks most of the time. So you need Spearhead Doctrine to really make it worthwhile. Alright, so that's the importance of combat width, and why reinforcements are important. Now, where were we? Right, so we just talked about this. Various technologies have unlock requirements. Large air search radar from bombers. Yeah. Advanced aircraft design in fighters. So you just have to kind of look around sometimes. Advanced aircraft design in fighters allows me to research a lot of these like navigational radars and stuff. However, if I really want to just go at it here, I mean, I personally like tactical bombers, so I'm actually going to research the medium bomb, which improves my tactical bombers attack by another 1 point. I'm doing the math here. And various other attacks. There's also a particular attack there noted as strategic attack, which I will be getting into shortly. Now, wrong screen. So, we have a lot of things that we'll need to research. Like, I should probably start researching improvements to medium tanks. Like, so that way I can maybe get those and maybe get some heavy tanks even in. There are a bunch of different classes of tanks. Now, tanks are interesting. They all have more or less, you know, various degrees of toughness, I guess. And everything you research that isn't reliability decreases toughness. But every time you increase reliability, toughness just shoots right on up. So it's an amusing balance. If you want to be like the Germans' Tiger tank, you put a lot of gun, you put a lot of armor, and some decent engine to it, but not much reliability. Reliability is basically the idea of refinement of a model, I suppose. But, you know, toughness is really only important on the offensive. Remember that. You can actually have pretty shitty toughness if you're really only making a defensive tank. Gotta keep that in mind. Yeah, I should go to, like, production and talk about things. You know, I can make a battleship, and I can actually downgrade its armament. you can see the different bonuses that it has. So I can actually just downgrade that. And that will reduce the amount of IC and everything it takes. No, you don't get an engine. No, you get nothing. Let's just make like a base model battleship here. Like, worst of the worst you get here. Tactics can't be downgraded. So, you know, it costs significantly less of everything. Also, it's terrible hull. Wow, that hull is actually quite awful. Actually, the hull is still pretty awful for battleships. So usually you want them at least 2. Before they're really any good. And, yeah. So you can always downgrade what you want on it. I don't know if you can you downgrade, bumpers and stuff? No. Bombers you cannot. But, yeah. So, alright, where were we? So yeah, you'll have to choose what to research, depending on what you're using, what you're facing, and what your enemy is. You know, if you're up against Britain, you might want to get some better fighters, and so on. Then there's the industry tab. Everything that isn't in this box is important. Arguably, everything on the left side of this line is important. You can, for the most part, actually ignore this stuff. If you want to go for the bomb, that's fine. You can go for the bomb. If you don't want to go for the bomb and prefer to spend your leadership elsewhere, that's also good. Don't feel pressured to go for the nuke. It's not actually that big of a thing. But you'll, generally speaking, want to keep on top of industrial production and efficiency. You'll want to make sure you're keeping on top of mechanical computing machines, because this improves the speed at which you research other things. You know, and basic stuff like that. Electronic computing machines, very important as well. If you can get hold of a couple levels of those. Encryption and decryption are sort of important. Basically, when your leader chooses a tactic, depending on your encryption and the enemy's decryption, you know, the ability for you to say the enemy leader to find out what your chosen tactic is and swap his is based on that. So it sure would be a shame, you know, if the enemy decrypted your messages and found out your tactics and then immediately chose the correct counter. Like, if they know what tactic that you're using, they are very likely to choose the one that counters it. FYI. So yeah, basic, you know, if you don't really mind too much, you can just focus on encryption and not worry too much about decryption. Decryption's pretty important, though. Otherwise, you're going to find all your plans getting leaked all over the place. Never a good thing to have. Rockets are okay. They're related to secret. Secret is crazy stuff, like strategic rockets, you know, ICBMs. Some of this stuff is actually pretty good. Like, in particular, I personally like radar-guided bombs. It's only one level of it, but you get some basic stuff here. Like, you don't even need anything on the screen. You get this around 1944. And, you know, your tactical bombers get gigantic boost to their soft, hard, and sea attack. Like, that's huge. The secret techs are interesting. You should consider probably getting 1 or 2 of them. Depending. Surface to air missiles is actually incredible. Provincial AA efficiency plus 200%. Oh, that's good. That is good stuff there. And, of course, the nuke. Gotta be careful about that, eh? Alright. So that's about it for technology. I spent about 20 minutes already talking about that. We've got 11 technologies. Like, you'd want to be researching more than this, but this is just for demonstration purposes and to talk to you about how technology works. Next up, we have espionage. Now, espionage is important. Holy crap, there are a lot of spies in our country. Having spies active in the enemy countries are important, because you can do various things. You can do, you know, find neutralize enemy spies, counter-espionage. You can figure out various things. However, you'll generally actually want to put them into covert operations. So, we have a bunch of free spies, so I'm going to put them into Germany. So, here, I can see what they're building. Let's see, they're building battleship, they're building a destroyer, they're building an Unterseebootflottille, they're building some escorts, they're building a lot of carriers. No, those are close air supports. My bad. And we can see what they're building. Oh, the AI builds infrastructure? I didn't think it did. But, yeah. Or you could increase threat. I'll talk about threat at some point, I'm sure. You can disrupt national unity, which I'll talk about when I do start doing strategic stuff. But note, you can disrupt the national unity here. Support our party, support their current ruling party, aka the Nazis. Tech espionage, military espionage. Yeah, and attempt to infiltrate enemy research factories and steal blueprints, prototypes, and secret documents. So, very important. We can also see who their ministers are. So, you know, we can see various data about them. And you can choose the priority of sending the various spies all across. And how your spy production is directly tied to what you choose here in espionage. Diplomacy. Diplomacy is important for some and more or less worthless for others. For the UK, it's actually pretty important. Let's say I really want to try and get Finland into the Allies. You know, I feel like they'd be a good ally. I can influence them. I can exert influence on Finland. This will move them 20 towards the Allies each day for unlimited days. Now that seems, well, it's like, alright, so you're now influencing them. Yes, I am, and that's why they're going to drift a hell of a lot closer to the Allies very quickly. However, if we go over to technology now, it now says I need 2. In order to influence countries, I need to maintain it. And we talked about last episode why it's important to have countries in or near your faction at the very least. In your faction is recommended because then they help fight the war. Near your faction, at the very least, for, you know, various reasons. Alright. For, you know, strategic resources and stuff. So, you also need diplomacy in order to do trade agreements, and various other things. Although, for the most part, only influencing people requires a constant stream of diplomatic points. And finally, officers. We talked about why officers are important. And with the current influence of officers, I recruit 34.4 new officers each day. Yeah. So the more that you put into the officer slider, the most important. For most smaller nations, I'm going to basically recommend this. You'll want 31 techs. It's obviously not in Britain's case. It's a little too much in tech research. And then probably the rest in officers. Unless you have enough research that you can actually get all the research you want done, then you're probably going to have a makeup that looks something like this. If you watched Ethiopia, you might remember this. Research is important. Research is very important. So you'll end up probably putting at least like 15 or more into research if you want to stay modern. Now, at the bottom here, we have our final piece that we're going to talk about. And these are theories and practicals. Every time you research something, its research time is modified based on several factors. In order to improve the small arms, it is based on my infantry theory, my infantry practical, and my grand battle plan doctrine. And completing it will actually increase my infantry theory. Theory and practical decays over time. And are raised by researching and constructing units. Theory is raised by researching things. If you need to research your theory further, you can get really cheap techs to do that. Let's say I really wanted to be able to research infantry thing faster. I can get Infantry Warfare 1, which not only increases my infantry theory by +1, it also means that my theory decays faster. Now, this is important. This means, you know, if you focus on one particular area of research, you will get much better at it. This encourages specialization rather than just splitting apart across everything. You have a bunch of different things. So militia have militia techs related to that, and grant militia theory, for example. There's mobile unit theory, artillery theory, automotive theory, and so on. And then, you know, nuclear physics and nuclear bomb making. Now, practical is slightly different. Practical also affects production times. You'll notice here that my infantry practical, armor practical, and artillery practical reduces the building time, cost, and time by a certain amount. So, you know, 20.6% less because I have some decent infantry practical. And it also shows how much of the blank you get. So if I throw in another infantry, I get plus 0.4 infantry practical. Building lots of infantry means I can build infantry faster and research infantry technologies faster. And, you know, the same can be said for tanks and other things. It may be possible that you can research things that are ahead of time relatively efficiently if, you know, you have enough infantry if you have enough, say, infantry and theory and practical and stuff. And, you know, you can build things faster, as your factories are tooled to build specific things. So, production. Enough of that. Technology, so they're different than that. There are also the doctrines and the various things we saw, like the Grand Battle Plan Doctrine, which helps our infantry. You'll find generally 2 to 3 things affect the various things. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. So, yeah. That's the basis of theory and practical. And that's pretty much the basics of the technology screen, actually. So real quick, we're going to go into the politics screen, because this is pretty easy to do, and I can have this done in 5 minutes. Christ, I hope so. This is the simplest screen of the game. Here you can choose your ministers. There's also an election every so often. Basically, each minister gives you a bonus or penalty. And, you know, you can simply replace them as necessary. So I can make Churchill, you know, my armament minister, which gives me a jet engine and nuclear physics practical decay reduction. So that can be interesting. There are others like the chief of the army here. Militia and infantry practical, supply consumption reduction, armor practical reductions, which means that, you know, I'll be able to build armor quicker. Stuff like that. Currently, you know, we got that. And there are various bonuses that you can get. And this little orb next to them represents which party they're from. You'll notice over here that there are various parties. And their popularities distributed in a graph. The popularity shows you the result of an election, if it were to happen this day. The important thing to note about this is it can be influenced by foreign countries. I mean, it'd be a real shame if, you know, the National Socialist League happened to win an election, because Hitler used a bunch of spies to raise their organization. Remember, we saw some stuff in the intelligence screen before. So yeah, you could do that. That is one way to pacify your opponents. You could turn the USA into a bunch of commies. Hey, why not? Why the hell not? So yeah, it's pretty simple as that. You generally don't have too much control over it, other than the ability to raise your national unity. But there is one important thing. There's a modifier called fractured government. Each party's popularity qualifies them for a number of cabinet positions. So the Labour Party and the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are each entitled to 4 cabinet positions. I must fulfill and give them all at least one for those 4 cabinet positions each. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 8 split amongst, you know, the various parties, and then you have these 2 that you can't choose, but hey, they're social conservative, which means I don't necessarily have to give the social conservatives as many. So, you know, if you do not have it, unfortunately, you will get what is known as fractured government, which will reduce your national unity. Unfortunately, for a lot of countries, you will be forced to just take on the fractured government thing, because it was actually added in a later expansion after the base game. And seriously, most countries don't have the ability to not have a fractured government. You can blame Paradox for that one. It's rather quite unfortunate. And then down here, we have the various laws. Here's a general rule. The lower this is, the better the law. For example, service by requirement is just flat better than the 3-year draft. For example, service by requirement, national manpower modifier, plus 100%, whereas right now it's only plus 25%. Officer recruitment increases, reserves, penalty impact. The only thing is it's necessarily, there really is just no downside to this. You just want service by requirement. Like, there are a few where it's actually, you know, something you can consider. This gives you more leadership, but costs you a pile of money. So if you're down on resources and really need to trade, that can be something you can do. And mixed industry, you have heavy industry emphasis and consumer product orientation. Generally speaking, you will want to stay to mixed industry at all times. only in very specific circumstances do I think it's ever good to go to heavy industrial emphasis. This improves your IC efficiency for production, which means that you will produce units 5% cheaper. It also improves your supply output, which is alright. So, like, Russia, I generally think is a good country to go to heavy industrial emphasis because you really do need the supply output. I keep calling it through. It's throughput, goddammit. I'm bad at this. Supply throughput, sorry, which means you can move more supplies through regions and ports. It's kind of important. So, for some countries, it's better. Evaluate your situation and choose accordingly. Outside of that, pretty much everything is better the lower it is on the scale. If you can move it down, you can hold your cursor over it and figure it out. Like, you can only do propaganda press if you are the National Socialist League or the Communist Party. Okay, if you're these two ideologies. Neither you really want. If you happen to occupy countries, you'll have a list of occupation laws that you can do. These will affect various things. Wow, they've actually got a lot in there. Blitz, defend. Yeah, my generals are very vanilla, apparently. Disappointing. So, that's the basics of politics, technology, and intelligence. Next time, we'll be talking about diplomacy and combat. Thank you everybody for watching. As always, this has been your lovely host, Keelvin, signing off.